Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So my name's Marcyes, and like he was saying, I was previously co-founder and CTO of Plancast, which we sold last year to Active Network. And then up until actually just a couple weeks ago, I was on the founding team of Undrip, which is aggregating social media feeds and doing stuff like that. So I have now basically built how do I get slides? There we go. They're fixing it. All right, I have basically, did I do something wrong or? Okay. I built 2 social media companies or social networking companies. And my advice, just so everyone knows, is very VC business-backed focus, because both of the companies raised venture capital. And I want everyone to kind of understand that when you raise VC, you basically, you've created a clock that you're putting on your mantle and you're starting it, and it's counting down. And you have until it gets to 0 to do something with your business. You've also subscribed to a certain lifestyle. That lifestyle is, I'm going to grow really big, really quickly. And no matter what I do, I'm going to get my business to explode. So with that being said, I want to talk about money. So we can actually think of money in 2 different ways. The first thing, I guess I'm not going to have slides. We could actually think, the first thing is traditional money. So I build a product. It's what everyone thinks of when they think of money. If you can kind of see it right there. I build a product. They pay me for that product. And then when you're a social networking company or a social company, your money is actually your users. It's so much your users that it could actually be on your income statement. If you've ever read the quarterly reports for Facebook, if you ever have looked at the press releases of LinkedIn, they talk about their user count almost more than they talk about the money they make. It's Facebook's big thing is look at us, we've got 1 billion users. LinkedIn's big thing is look at us, we've got 200 million users. And every quarter they're updating you on those users. How many are active? How many are doing this? How many are doing that? And the reason they're doing that is because that is their income. And you have to grow it to a certain level. So with that being said, let's look at what happens when things don't work. And I could actually really use a slide on this one. All right, it's slide 4 now. We've moved on. All right. I want to talk a little bit about Pinterest. And so everyone, I think pretty much everyone's heard of Pinterest. It's one of the first great social companies to come along in a while. Thank you. Let's go back. Can I go back? Nice. I spent a lot of time on these slides, people. Thank you. So actually, before I talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about it. When Pinterest kind of came on the thing, it was, I don't know, 6 months ago, something like that. And everyone in the press was talking about how Pinterest just slogged it out for years and years and years. And they were working and doing all this kind of stuff, and they didn't pivot, because everyone in the tech press's favorite word was pivot. And it's oh, they didn't pivot. They even though they weren't a success, they just sat there and they were working and they were working and they were working, and finally it became a success. Actually, Pinterest only looks like that. Because if you talk with Ben Silverman, you'll find out that Pinterest actually grew 50% month over month over month over month. Any VC that's investing in social companies would invest in that. And you know that because Pinterest actually raised 2 rounds before you ever even heard of them. So if you look at their numbers, now Pinterest started with about 200 users in the first month. This is 50% growth on growth over 2 years. It just looks like it's not doing anything for 2 years. But then you get to the 24-month and they've got 1 million users. And now they're growing 500,000 users a month, each and every month. That is amazing, phenomenal growth. Now let's look at something like Plancast, which I actually could be very familiar with. Plancast had a great initial pop. And within 6 months, we had a pretty decent sized user base. And then we just smacked into linear growth. Linear growth seems great. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to say in the first month we start with 100,000 users and we're growing 25,000 users a month. I'm guessing if most of you haven't built a social company at scale, 25,000 users a month is great. If you build a business that pays you $25,000 a month, someone buys your product, you have built a great small lifestyle business that will support you, a couple employees. do it into perpetuity. You don't have to answer to VCs. You don't have to do anything. 25,000 users, which is your revenue when you're a social company, gets you nowhere in 2 years. You're not even at 1 million users yet. You're not at 1 million users. You're not even where you need to be to raise another round of financing. You're not even where you need to be to get a bridge loan. You're nowhere, basically. And so this is what happens when you have linear growth. So with that being said, I want to talk a little bit, and this is actually where the title of the thing comes from. I want to talk a little bit about how people think of they're going to get users and stuff like that, and kind of like, I want to walk a fine line of being like not jaded, but being realistic. And I went through these slides with my wife last night, and she was kind of like, man, you're kind of being negative. And so I don't want you to like think that, but I want you to like take it into account when you say these things. So like the first thing people that I always hear, they talk about, oh, well, I'm going to build a social network, a social company, and I'm going to get press. You know, like someone in TechCrunch is going to write about me, and my startup is going to go huge. There's an old Simpsons episode where like Rainier Wolfcastle, the big like Arnold Schwarzenegger actor guy, is like thing, and the director's saying, all right, this is live acid, people, so remember your goggles. And then the acid like starts coming down, and Rainier Wolfcastle like pulls out his goggles and puts them on, and the acid just like sweeps him up, and he's like, my eyes, the goggles, they do nothing. Press is kind of like that. Like you think that it's gonna, like that big like article in TechCrunch or in Mashable or if any of like the networks is gonna like all of a sudden like skyrocket your startup to fame and fortune. It does not work that way. You will get a bump, but it will be almost to like something that is not, it's not gonna help you materially. Like it's much, much, much better to build a huge, like a good product that people are using and telling their friends than to ever be featured in TechCrunch. And you can look at that because like the two big social successes in the last like couple years are Pinterest and Snapfish, and they came out of nowhere. And the reason why they came out of nowhere, and like when press started writing about them, they had millions of users, is because they had built a product that people actually used and told their friends about before any power users or anyone in Silicon Valley had almost discovered them. So with that in mind, I had a picture of Robert Scoble right here, but I changed it out to my daughter carrying a big heart. And the reason why is because you really do need to build products that people love. I honestly think that a lot of people say it's like let's get power users, and as long as we have a couple power users that have 1 million followers on Twitter, they're going to tweet about us, and then all their followers are going to come over and they're going to start using our product, and we're just like we're going to go huge, and like that's our business model, that's our distribution model. In actuality, I've built 2 products now that have many, many, many power users that use them and tweet about them and talk to their friends about them. It was immaterial to our overall growth because we still needed to have users that would give us big giant hearts and tell their friends. And personally, I really do think that people that follow power users on Twitter and everything, they're jaded. I would much rather talk to my mom, download an app that my mom recommends or that like one of my good friends recommends than someone recommends to me on Twitter. So the final thing is kind of in the business model direction, and that's, I'm going to build a social company and then I'm going to put ads on it. And like that's how I'm going to make money. And so I'm going to go to VCs and I'm going to talk like, well, our revenue model is we're going to get users and we're just going to grow and become huge. And then we're going to put ads on it. But before we have like huge users, we're gonna like work out the ad network, and we're gonna be a super. I kid you not, I had someone tell me this is like we're gonna be a super targeted geo-mobile ad network that will be able to offer you coupons based off of where you were. And when I like stopped him, I was like, you know what? Like let's say I'm a pizzeria, and I want to advertise to people that are around my pizzeria. Would I go to your super targeted geo-social network that has, I don't know, 10,000 users, 20,000 users? Hey, let's say it has 2 million users. Or could I just go to Facebook ads, do a massive campaign of everyone that's in San Francisco or everyone that's, I don't even know where we are, Palo Alto. Just do everyone that's located in Palo Alto right now, get 200 times more eyeballs, It would be tons more affordable. I don't have to deal with like any smaller startups. And that's realistically what the brands and the people that pay for advertising, that's what they do. They're not going to come to your small startup and advertise with you. You are not, unless you're incredibly lucky, are not going to get Ford. You're not going to get GM, like Coca-Cola, the people that pay. Like our biggest advertising campaign at Plancast was Pepsi, and we were just like over the moon that we were able to land Pepsi. And that was because we had built up to a certain level, but before that, we had nothing. And you just need to be realistic about, basically you just need to be realistic about how you're going to make money. So now, like the final thing, I want you to, I kind of, like I realize that I'm giving you a couple things as like, this isn't going to help you and everything, but I want you guys to realize it's like, just because like advertising as a business model isn't going to work for you, doesn't mean something else isn't going to work for you. And you need to be, if you're set on building a social company and you want to do that and you want to do this, that's fine, but be realistic about how you're going to make money. Bear in mind that Facebook and Twitter had hundreds of millions of users before they ever launched any ad products. So you're going to have to think in the back of your mind that you're going to have to be like that too. So why don't you try to figure out some other way to make money? And actually, I think the guy that's coming up next is going to talk a lot about that and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I'm a good segue into Jeff. How much time do I have left? Okay, can I do Q&A? Just like one last thing. If you're ever sitting around and you're talking to an entrepreneur and they're like telling you something, this is what I've personally found is if they had like a TechCrunch article or something, ask them how many hits they got from their website. Like based off that, or how many app downloads they have, or something like that. If they give you some outrageous number, like 100,000 like new users, or they got 100,000 visits to their site, you know they're full of crap, and you can pretty much like take all their numbers from then on with a grain of salt. So just so you know, like half that, like cut it into fourths or something like that. Any number they give you a revenue number, instantly cut it into fourth. They give you a growth number, cut it into fourth, like because like they're so dramatically like overemphasizing their numbers that they're basically full of crap. What would be a good bump from TechCrunch? So Peter would actually know a little bit better than I do, but I would say between 10 and 20,000 would be an amazing bump from TechCrunch, like actual visitors to your site. Some people with like real appeal might get a little more than that, and lots of people will get a lot less. But I would say you're looking at like an increase of between 10 and 20,000. And that's based off of multiple articles in TechCrunch. Like I wish, this is one of those things, is like I don't have access to the Google Analytics of like Plancast anymore, but I actually used to have like documented proof of like those are the kind of bumps you would get, and you'd see it, and they're just going to be spikes. Like they're a spike, and then you basically go back down to, hopefully, if everything went exactly and you are building a product that people enjoy, you hopefully come back down higher than you were before, but you come back down to like your normal growth curve. And so the real thing you're looking for is you're looking for a percentage growth that stays consistent over time. Much like Pinterest was like 50%. Geez, if you could get 25% growth like month over month over month over month, you're doing phenomenal. Like what we found at Plancast is we started with like 15% growth, but then the next month it was 14.7, the next month it was 14.6, next month it was 14.2, and we realized that we were having problems. A lot of my advice is I think you should cut your losses fast. You start building a site. Let's say you've quit your job, you're working on it, you've got 3 or 4 month burn rate or something like that. You should like cut your losses if you're not growing at the level you need, because you really have to be a phenomenal success if you're going to build a social company. All right, that's all I've got. Thanks, guys.
Give it up for Jay.